Jeff, unmute.
Yeah, unmute. We lost Jeff.
Did we?
Okay, how's that?
There we go. You're good to go.
Yeah. Okay. So, how apropos as to what we're talking about? How to run an on. As Rick earlier in our planning meeting this morning is none of us is into putting on a performance, but we require audience feedback. So we get a lot of that feedback in what we've done in the past 4 days. Here we're 5 days in. It's time to circle the wagons, and get your feedback. So Tim's got a few questions that we're going to ask. He's got some answers from the questions that we asked earlier this week. And we've gotten some really good feedback. And with that, I'm going to ask Jimmy and John to kind of lead us through a conversation. I suspect that it's going to be messy, but it ought to be fruitful. And that's what I believe real education is. It's often messy. And how do we find our way forward?
I'm gonna toss it to John Bukowski first. JB, you could take it away. Unmute yourself and kick in, and let's begin the conversation.
So just to make sure everybody is not, because we do have one attendee who has been experiencing some chat issues, and so we're going to run this from my system, which is the same as everybody else's. I've got two panes going at once. One, it will be the video side where it'll be brought to the top. Whoever is speaking should be brought to the top, and then any of the answers to the questions will come through the chat window, which Jimmy and I will reiterate the question first and foremost so that the group can hear it, and then throw it to the room whereas we can answer it. Okay, so Jeff Curtis says, "Hi JD, I'm JB." But I think he was saying hi to Jimmy Dinsmore. So no, Jimmy, say hi.
To JD Zadjet.
It's easy for you to say. Hello, everyone.
And then what we can also do is, if it's kind of lengthy, you can sort of just put a hand up in the chat window, and we can sort of throw the floor to you, which would be an invitation to unmute your video and your audio and to just speak your question. So if anything is sort of you feel like is going to be a little bit verbose, go ahead and just raise your hand, throw an emoji in there into the chat window, and we'll take it from there. So which question do we want to start with, gents?
The first.
Well, I'm looking at an answer. I'm looking at an answer to one of the question, the first question, and a chat response said, "I would really like people to maybe do some samples of teaching online learning that they've already been doing from mainly an online perspective that others might find helpful." And I don't know. I fear that we all haven't been doing a lot of online stuff. Is that forward to everybody?
Yeah.
Yes.
So what I'm wanting to know is, does anybody have any examples of something that they're doing? I know this has been kind of like a crash course in student engagement online, but in the week or week and a half that we've actually been forced to do this, does anybody have any good examples?
So Joe Hart just said he thought yesterday's meeting was a good example. I'm glad you said that. I think it was a lot of fun. We weren't here yesterday. We kind of did a hands-on type of Ohm's Law using the instructor's hands. And we asked the rest of you to be the students and walk us through how to make a circuit.
Has anybody implemented anything? Is anybody in the fire already? Has anybody already started virtual learning at their schools? Please speak up if you've done so. I know most of us are getting ready to, but has anybody done so already?
Yes, hello.
Maybe not.
Hello?
Yes, go.
Yeah, go ahead.
Please.
Yeah, hello. My name is Steve Shattuck. I work with Kenworth Truck Company. While we are in the process of implementing virtual learning at this time, we're currently looking over several different optional programs. But I have done virtual learning through the University of Idaho when I worked on my master's degree. And in that application, I've seen a couple different formats already for online virtual learning. And we're kind of at Kenworth right now, we're kind of picking and choosing which one of those applications is going to work best for us. And we'll come up with our own version of a program. But I've done virtual learning in the past. And there's so many different formats. It's really kind of an individual corporation or entity's choice onto which way they want to go with it as to what fits best in their program.
Steve, can I ask you a couple of questions about that?
Sure.
Okay, so the first thing that comes to mind is you said you've done virtual learning in the past, which I think that it's fairly common for teachers, especially of auto, but sometimes in the heavy diesel world as well, to have already implemented elements of that. Can you tell me if part of your curiosity, by the way, welcome, but can you tell me if part of your curiosity, what leads you here, has anything to do with the idea of what we're all dealing with, which is how do we facilitate anything hands-on but virtually, anything that we can do physically but virtually?
So even in today's environment where nobody wants to touch anybody or anything, that the technicians are hands-on people. There is really no way that I have seen or envisioned where you can 100% get away from actual hands-on learning. It is just not realistic in our industry. Okay, right. So what we've decided to do is more of a hybrid system, at least that's what we're looking at now, where we do as much of the content online in a virtual setting and then have breakout sessions or specific like one-day classes or something like that where they come in and do hands-on skill testing at a specific location. There's really nothing that you can do to replace hands-on with a technician that will not cut down on its effectiveness if you try and do it in an online setting.
Yeah, but well said. And so that that puts you in the right room for sure, because we're all in agreement there. That is basically the thing we all have to sort of dance around right now. At the moment, a lot of these folks' hands are forced. There's just simply no way to get everybody in the shop and working on vehicles for the time being. So we've got to sort of make the most of what we have currently. But I think everybody in the room would agree wholeheartedly that cutting it away entirely is just it's not feasible, not plausible.
Aaron brings up something that I haven't seen a lot of people mention thus far. He said they gave their students all data login info and had them do assignments based upon researching a car and writing a repair order. I really like that idea. I haven't seen too many people mention all data, but that's actually a really solid suggestion there, Aaron.
I want to go back a little bit further than that. As we were talking, Marshall Link says, I've already had my internship classes mostly online, where all discussion boards are online that I would be happy to share with some. So reach out to Marshall. If Marshall, you want to throw your email address in the chat window, if anybody wants to share what Marshall has done. What's the name of the school again? Belling. Come on, help me out here, Jeff. Bellingham. Is that right? Unmute yourself, Jeff. Anyway, I also see Mr. Hires. I think your first name is Joe, if I remember correctly. Electude already gave a week's worth of modules before we left. So he's already well into using Electude, which obviously really does a great job with the theory portion. And when you're in electrical, actually has a bit of quote unquote hands-on. And then he said, we're on spring break this week, so congratulations. Electude examples, says Tim Dwyer. Why don't you unmute and be specific?
I'm unmuted. I was just going to be, I'm queuing up for my next question. Does anybody have actual examples of that they've used on Electude that have been working? So I mean,
Has
I'm
anybody
doing the
gone
same thing.
off
A lot of,
Has anybody gone off the beaten path with Electude? What I mean by that is Electude does have facilities for customization. Has anybody have enough experience with Electude prior to them giving it away during the crisis to have played with it a bit? Because I think there is some potential to do somewhat of a blended learning where hands-on for one and assessment for others.
Joe
Meaning
said
that
he
the
has
struct-
made ASE practice tests on Electude.
Oh, well then, I don't know if there's a sharing facility, but by all means, your source content will be welcomed, I think, by a great many instructors.
Aaron, jump in. Absolutely. Turn.
Yes, Aaron,
Absolutely.
unmute and
All right, so with Electude, they have the assignments and the worksheets. I saw that for transmission side. I think we could really utilize those with all data and have them research fake vehicles, assign all the students the same vehicle. That's what I did with ROs, because simply, if at least if they research on all data, they can look up the procedures, they can go step by step of what they should do versus at least nothing. So at least they can do a step by step. This is what I need to do on this vehicle, and you'll give them 3 vehicles to do. I found
yeah,
that.
and there's a lot of tasks that are simply research service data, and so that's a big chunk. If you can pull that off in some areas, you can take a big bite out of it that way.
I got my class done in 60 repair orders on scenarios of just, we were doing brakes, how to pressure test a brake system, R&R master. That's what we at the end of the quarter.
Jones, unmute. Explain what all Electude is giving for free. I know that you rep them.
Yes, sir. Glad to join the meeting. Thanks. Mark Jones here at GES in Atlanta, representing Electude for 5 states here in the Southeast. Electude is all in, as we say right now. So what they have offered is their Automotive Essentials High School Edition. They have offered the simulator, the engine management simulator, which a lot of teachers are using today in distance learning with over 150 faults. Obviously, the job sheets are there as well. So one of your participants was talking about the fact that, you can send into their garages with job sheets.
Yeah.
That's available as well. MotoLogic is in, so all the partner products are there. MotoLogic Vehicle Repair and Diagnostics is available anytime, anywhere, from any device. Haynes All Access Manuals with DIY video. Very good quality DIY is in there as well. Obviously, the CCAR safety content with hazmat, including things like PPE right now.
Yep.
Including student credentialing, as well as heavy vehicle. So we've dropped over 2,300 content areas for heavy truck in there as well, and giving everyone full access to that material. The only thing that is teacher only right now is Career Team, a new employability career research software skills.
Okay.
That's it. Yep.
Thank you. Okay, Joe, thank you very much, Mark. Joe Hart also says AC Delco has the GM set specialized electronics virtual experiments. So those are given away free. Nathan, welcome, Nathan. Should be hosting us right now. But Kahoot is a great free resource right now. There's some built-in stuff with Kahoot, which is a great assessment tool. And so the list goes on and on of things that folks are willing to, especially on the software side, give away for free right now. But from my point of view, and I think from this room's point of view, our issue remains. How do we do the tactile stuff virtually? And so I'm sort of challenging the room right now. Can we talk about any plans or any things that are currently implemented which are doing somewhat like what we showed yesterday, or if you just have plans to do that in the future? And we'll look in the chat.
John, I would just throw something out, and maybe I'm way off base here, but administrators are often, unfortunately, unaware of the value and necessity of hands-on learning. As this new course is charted in yet unknown waters here I want to make sure that all the instructors use whatever opportunities they're presented with to make sure that administration doesn't think that virtual learning will replace hands-on, even though it may be a bridge or a tie-in. I just want to make sure that whenever we get the chance, we don't lose concept of the advantage and necessity of working, with your hands on a vehicle. Virtual learning is great, and I think we're all going to learn a lot of things about it in the coming days and months, but I just want to go back to that hammer and just make sure we don't lose concept of what we need to do.
Yeah, and so, yeah, go ahead, Jimmy.
Well,
I
so
think there's one
that's
you want to
great
read.
feedback from
Same
Dick
with me.
there. I see a note from Joe in chat about some online resources available from Skills USA. So with Tim's inside knowledge regarding Skills USA and then Rick Martineau's inside knowledge at Skills Canada, I was wondering if either of them could speak about any role that those two organizations are going to be playing or what they may be offering up to lend support as well.
I want to add one more before you guys start typing, which is, has anybody heard anything concrete from ASC with regards to our continuing education hours this year? Have they said definitively they're going to be lenient, or are they going to perhaps want companies like us and AC Delco and some of the other guys we see every single year at these events to give a virtual workshop like we've done in the past? If anybody has any insight as to what ASC is doing, of course we have our feelers out as well, but if anybody else has heard from their local guys what they plan to do.
So it might be a good guest speaker to have someone from ASC on this chat one day, just to bring everybody up to speed. We could speculate, but I haven't heard anything other than they're looking for people who would offer something to replace the 20 hours that instructors are probably not going to get this year due to a lot of the conferences that are being canceled. So yeah, let me see if I can reach out to someone from ASC.
Sorry,
Jimmy, I want to break in here for a second.
For what Joe
Richard?
said. Joe Hart said he thinks this should count towards your 20 hours. Of course, I think everybody in this room would agree with that, but we have to convince the powers that be to do such.
JB Richard Smith wanted to chime in, so go ahead and jump in, Richard.
Go ahead, Mr. Smith.
Thank you. Good morning or afternoon to whoever. I got an email this morning from ASC. They're putting on a free webinar, ASC Section 609, update and other MVAC service news on Thursday, March 26th at 4 p.m. Free information webinar, if anybody is interested.
Isn't that about air conditioning? Isn't that about air conditioning?
Yes, yes, it is, but it is free. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know too much about that part of it. So
yeah,
I just received that email this morning. Thank you.
Joe Heyer says he got his 20 hours at Vision. That was fortuitous for you.
Your question about Skills, I don't know. To be honest with you, I haven't heard anything from Skills other than they're dropping like flies as far as canceling or postponing. I don't know of any resources. I think they're in damage control right now, trying to decide what that picture is going to look like this year. So
I think they have the same problem that the Olympics do. I mean, you say, well, the Olympics happen over the summer. Why are we canceling that already? Well, it's all the regionals and competitions that, weed out those folks who will eventually be Olympic athletes that we just can't do right now. So
I'm on the automotive, or actually ConsulLab. I represent them on the Automotive Service Technician Committee for Skills Nationals, and April 13th is going to be the drop dead date that they make their decision whether Nationals is going to be going to happen or not. But we've all been chiming in on state contests that we know have canceled. And last count, I had 28 state contests have either canceled or postponed. And I personally can't imagine doing a national contest with that many state contests not even happening. So they are asking. Well, but they're asking for, one, yeah. If one state dropped out, how would you know that that wasn't going to be the guy that won? So having said that, they're asking for help with virtual contests, kind of like we're trying to do here. And I have to admit, I just haven't even focused any time on that because I can't picture a skills contest not being a hands-on contest. So,
let me ask a question of the room here. And when I say the room, I don't mean those of us wearing these shirts. I mean the non-Comms Lab people. I'm hearing that finding your 20 hours could be a challenge if you didn't go to Vision and pick them up there. So what if Comms Lab was able to virtually offer some kind of technical training like what we would do at NACAD or what we've done at Vision or any other conferences? What if we could offer it virtually? Like maybe we talk about CAN bus or have the great Santini present virtually here. Would that be of interest, or would you guys want to attend? And do you think that you would be qualified for your 20 hours that way?
Before they answer, I think that's where we need to get ASE on our either a comment from them or have them just sit in for 5-10 minutes and just fence some questions if they could. I think it would, and they may be sitting at a table right now trying to decide how to answer those questions. So we don't know. But
I can
but yeah,
contact them and see if they're interested in collaborating with us. I know there was a gentleman who was in ETL who was going to email Mike Coley and ask his input. So that's possible also.
So several of the comments all say, if the hours count, they would absolutely be interested in something like that. So it's kind of good to know. We don't want to toot our own horn and say, hey, we think we could solve this for you, but maybe we can help at least solve you in that regard. So.
Well, and it might even be that Electude counts as some of the hours now. I mean, I think whatever, the rules are gone this year. I think we have to do whatever has to take place, and not to just say we did it. I think there has to be some type of student learning. So Jeff's saying we're going to continue this next week.
Jeff's asking what can we as a team here, meaning Comms Lab, what can we bring to this discussion for you next week? What else would you want to see?
And we may not be able to catch all the chats as they happen.
Yeah. Well, I can say one idea we had was a somewhat of a repeat of what we did with Jeff, which is have a set of virtual hands near something, either a vehicle or training system, where we would guide them, but we would move away from, I think the idea was to move away from electrical and towards AC, which, it's maybe not in Canada yet where they're still buried in snow, but it's becoming that time of year here in the Southeast for sure, where AC becomes sort of, we've got to learn it quick because everybody's getting their systems checked and whatnot, recharged.
Some ideas they've asked for CAN bus, drivability, lab scope stuff, and AC is always good. So,
well, shoot, we want to do scopes. We can do that right now.
I've resisted doing a presentation on scopes because
no pun intended.
I don't want to exclude anybody. But we can do that.
We can do that several ways. Yeah, for sure.
So Tim, do you have more of those questions as we draw to a close? We're running out of time, and we're really looking for your input here in the chat as to what can we do tomorrow? Okay. What can we do Monday? How should we, or Tuesday? What can we do Monday to prepare for Tuesday? What do you want to see?
To honor, I guess, the chat that has already taken place, and that's kind of what I was trying to do today, was to bring those questions up in addition to asking what we've already asked too. There was a comment about, my camera off?
Camera's off.
Dang, I'm sorry. There was a question about, we're sitting there trying to decide what you guys want. Has anybody taken a class vote from your students and talked about what they want? There was a question about language barriers. Sometimes doing it virtually, you have problems with that. We watched a couple of videos here recently that were done damn well, and they didn't say a word. So there's that thought too. And then I'm going to flip one last deal. After reading that article that we just posted at the beginning of this chat, I think we have a bigger picture on what we need to deal with here. We definitely need to get content and hours and learn how to do all this sort of stuff. But busying ourselves to scramble to make this thing happen when, again, we're in a no rule zone. This is virgin territory. I think we have a obligation as the instructors to be a safe base for our students. We can't be panicking. We can't be freaking out. We have to do what we do it simply and controlled. And maybe there's discussions that need to happen here that don't have to do with, voltage, ohms and amps and wheel bearings and things like that. It has to do more with how our world changed. Bam, like that. What do you want to be when you grow up? What's the transportation industry going to look like? There's a lot of things there's a lot of discussions that are, I think, could be very fruitful between you and your students that don't require, a lesson plan, so to speak, of having demonstrations and videos and prep time, because I think we're kind of busying ourselves and not really looking at what's going on here. So that's just my 2 cents.
Well, for sure, guys like us will always use that as a coping mechanism. We're going to dive into content. We're going to want to get our hands dirty a bit. I mean, if you guys were here for the tailgate, I was actually dealing with an old drill that's showering me with sparks. I don't have to do it. It's been broken for months, but now's the time. Why? Because what else is there to do? I'm stuck in a house. Everybody's stuck in their house. And so, my coping mechanism, I think, is the same as most people in the room. You want to get your hands into something. You want to start fixing something, doing something. You start going into the box of things that you've put off. The thing is, if everybody has that similar coping mechanism, can any of it be turned educational? I think is a good question for us to ask ourselves. Can we take those moments?
Kevin Baden in the chat says he would like to see more hands-on case studies.
Yeah. Can I just pop in for a minute and say that, you guys are all scrambling to create content and what your subject matter is. We're in our mode where we're trying to figure out what the subject matter is for each day and then create the content for you. So as much as we're asking, we're also pleading for some input as to what can we do to help. Some input of what you see, and we'll go with the consensus. We've got the chat. You can also access all of our emails that were posted in a previous chat, or you go to our website and you can find all our contact info. So
in the movie, Jerry Maguire said, not just show me the money, but he said, help me help you. And that's what we're looking for.
There you go.
Should have stopped the recording before you said that.
2 minutes, guys, 2 minutes.
Yeah, so that's a great point, and I do agree. A lot of the time that's been put into this so far is sort of like, well, we've got another one 2:00 the next day. What are we going to do? So we're at your behest. Let's get some ideas. I saw a couple of thumbs up on the AC idea. And I saw, obviously, we've already announced the scope work idea as well. I think both of those are very doable, and I think in the short term as well. Not to commit the education team without their say-so, but I think both of those things are fairly doable fairly quickly. With the notion that we won't be able to, in short notice, tear apart a vehicle, but we will have some items at our disposal that might bear a certain logo. So we have our workarounds. We're going to use them. So, but keep the ideas coming. Whatever else you want. I think I'm going to bring one up from the past. I don't remember exactly who said it, but it was in a much earlier session. Brakes. If we can do anything brakes for somebody, that includes a bit of hands-on. That's sort of a challenge to the group, me included, of course. What can we do to facilitate somebody who once said early on in the chat, how do we do brakes hands-on? virtually.
Virtually.
Okay, so it's 2:30. Technically, we're done, but of course, we don't just class dismiss this thing. I'm going to stop the recording, but let's keep this dialogue going. We've had some good discussions here, lots of good ideas. I know the guys from our educational team are excited to hear some of these things, and I'm sure we can execute some of them. So I'm going to stop the recording
Gentlemen.
now.
Okay, so the recording is stopped. We are now